Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
Ciao.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Sorry, cut out there, Tom. What's your name, Tom?
Tom.
Cool.
My name is Tom. Sorry, before we started recording, George just decided to be incredibly catty and then hit live.
Meow. We said something and Adam said, to add that to the intro, George. I said, you add it to the intro. And we're live.
Is this where I have to speak now? So this show's basically three uneducated guys talking about stuff they should be educated about. Proceed.
Are you happy? You got it out.
Yeah, I got it out. Yeah,
Got it out.
I did it with my voice.
I was mainly just laughing in anticipation of just like, you know, when George is in a catty mood, we're gonna get it. We're gonna get a good show.
Row, meow,
meow. So you might have noticed that Adam has come back from the brink of death. Those keen-eyed watchers of his social media might have noticed a lull in posting over a couple of days, and that's because he went under the knife and had his appendix out. Adam, can you tell us about the life-threatening experience of removing one of your useless organs?
Yep. Yeah, so nearly died. No, not really. I just had some abdominal pain. I went to the GP and he's like, let's send you off for some scans and blood tests. I'm like, okay, you don't want to like look at it or touch it? Or, okay.
You don't want to touch me? I came ready to be touched. So
I was ready. I was willing and open.
Touch my stomach. Touch it.
The next day I woke up and I was like,
I wore a kilt.
I've been in pain for 30.
I wore a kilt. I came ready.
Arr. That's what Scottish people say.
I'm a pirate Scotsman.
Are pirates just Scotsmen? Are they the same things?
I think pirates are Scotsmen of the sea. I think that's how it works. I know history.
Anyway, so yeah, I was in pain for like 36 hours, and I was like, you know what? I woke up Wednesday morning. I was like, nah, I probably should go to hospital. This isn't normal. Went to hospital. Your appendix is fucked. I'm like, great. So yeah, I had an operation, which was good. They were really good. The Alfred were really good. And I woke up. I was like, looked at my bits, and I was like, I have a lot less hair now than I did an hour ago. And
they did some grooming.
I didn't have my pants on, and I was like, obviously they needed access down there to that sort of area because they made a few incisions. But I was like, wasn't expecting that. But yeah, it went really well.
I have a question about this.
Yes.
I thought maybe it was the best time to ask was when you're
live,
like on air rather than in our like little private group chat.
Yep.
Had they groomed like everywhere? Or
No,
did you just have like you know, a little like square patch that they'd just shaved in? Like how weird were your pubes? Or what I'm
a hairy man, right? So
you are.
Here is like just this whole mane. I mean, this is
Adam
an audio medium.
is gesturing above and below his nipples and then down his stomach.
A delicious mane of black hair, and that was all gone.
Wow!
Down
so
to
like they just completely
above,
stripped you.
just above my shaft, shall we say?
Yeah,
just above that. They because they needed to get sort of into the groin area to
you know that scene in 40-Year-Old Virgin where they're waxing Steve Carell? It was basically like that, except he was unconscious.
I was like, just for the whole thing. Thank God.
I just find it funny that you just decided to think about it there to be a bit like, and down to my, I'll consider this, what's the best way to say this? Sharp.
Cockhole.
I think it is one of those rare times, like, penis would have been fine.
It would have been so much better.
You could have just said, like, just down to my penis. Like, instead of going like, oh, how do I put this delicately? Oh, man, they shaved me down to my Schlonnageddon, shall we say.
They really, they shaved me down to my heat-seeking moisture missile. I think that's the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
Jesus. No, it was keyhole surgery.
Yeah, pee-hole surgery, did you say?
Keyhole.
I'm 31. I'm so old for this.
George, growing old is compulsory. Growing up is optional.
Yes, as we proved.
To live by. All
But
right,
anyway,
yeah. So
all good.
You're
Went
bare
well.
naked, hair wise, and you're
the first
woken
thing
up
you
and
do
worried
is-
that you missed something fun.
The first thing you do is reach for your genitals. That's what I do when I wake up from being unconscious. That's the first thing. Yep. Okay. All good. Everything's still good.
Yep. Spectacles, testicles, wallet, and watch.
I don't really remember waking up. I just remember like at one point going,
Is that your first? Was that your first time out of a general anesthetic?
The last time I had a general, I was like 3. So that was the first operation.
Yeah, because it is like I've been under a general a few times, and it is like that, isn't it? Because you wake up after being asleep, and you remember waking up. You're just like, I'm awake, and I've had a night's sleep, like whatever, and it's kind of a bit weird. But coming out of a general anesthetic isn't like waking up, is it? You sort of like fade in. It's like your life has had a fade to black and then it fades back in. Like you were on the operating table, they're asking you to count down from 10, and then you just kind of fade out and fade back in, and you're somewhere else. And my first instinct is to look for a clock, because I'm just like, how long has it been? Like, how long was I out? Where am I?
Well, like
all this sort of stuff.
I obviously had woken up, but at a certain point, my memory doesn't go back to when I actually woke up. My memory starts.
It sort of clicks in a little bit later. You just kind of vaguely start becoming aware of things.
Yeah.
It's such a weird feeling.
Bizarre.
How did they do the count back from 10 to knock you out?
I can't remember what it was, but I do remember they're going, because I had to do some breathing, and the way they did my anesthetic was through an IV.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So they were like, they got my breathing regulated, in and out, like a drama school, just in and out. Breathe deeply, breathe into your diaphragm, Adam.
Now,
don't breathe to your chest.
And hold for 4. Yeah. Imagine you're on the side of a mountain. You're looking down. You feel
I did ask them,
breeze in your
actually.
hair.
I did ask them, I was like, do people have panic attacks at this point normally?
Just asking for a friend.
Just asking for a friend. Do they have panic attacks at this point? Oh, but yeah, totally. But that's when we just pump the drugs more. Knocks them straight out.
They're like, no.
No, never happened.
But yeah, they said, we're going to put the drugs in now. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh, there it is.
Okay. Because, I don't know, I guess this is clearly an indicator that I've had to go under a general anesthetic more times than I probably should have at my age. But they always do like the hook you up and be like, cool. So, they're talking to me about like, what do you do for work? Just to kind of keep you calm, probably to stave off anything like a panic attack, right? Maybe in that instance. But then they go, all right, and the drugs will go in. And now, Tom, if you can just count back from 10 for me. And of course, they're expecting that I'll never get to 0. I'll drop off and they'll know when I stop talking. So every time I try to make it closer to 0. I fight the drugs.
Yeah, because being awake while you're having surgery is a lot of fun.
That's what I'm worried about, is that if the next time I do it, because my record is 3.
That's pretty good.
My record is 7 seconds.
Well, if any listeners have ever beaten 3, if you've ever got to 2 or 1, I want you to tell us. Hit us up at Unnatural Show on various devices.
Yeah, because what I'm worried about is that I'll do it too well and I'll get like to 0. But now I'm like, like that sleep paralysis thing, like locked in my own brain, like fully conscious but unable to move or speak, and they'll be like, yeah, he's out, and then they start operating on me, and I'll be like, screaming with my eyeballs.
Making it to 3 is impressive. I think I've only been under a general once, and they're like, count backwards from 10. I was like, 10, I'm gone.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, he just like so weak sauce, just had no resistance whatsoever to anesthetic. I was just like, and 10, good night.
Yeah, that's what I was like originally. Like, it was like, 8, gone. But what I noticed that time when I was really trying and I got to the 3 was
3 lines of Coke.
Was feeling it kicking in, and the only way I can describe it is like it felt like my soul was being pulled into the ether. Like it's not like falling asleep. You just feel it like going, and consciousness is being taken from you.
Yeah, so it's like that scene in Doctor Strange where Tilda Swinton pushes out Stephen Strange's soul.
Pretty much.
Just like karate kicks his fucking soul out of his body. Yeah, that sounds pleasant.
I know we've been talking about this for a while, but I have one question left for Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
Did you have any weird, I've just come off general anesthetic behavior?
I don't know. I mean, the guys in the recovery room might be able to tell you that answer, but
damn.
No, I think I was pretty good. Did have some weird
Yeah.
hallucinations the other night, which I think might have been related to it, where I was like seeing colours and shit. But I
Cool.
was like,
Oh, I've never had that. Yeah,
I don't know. It
'cause-
might have been just because I was tired, but anyway,
Yeah,
it's all right.
I've just heard like weird things like that after general anesthetic. Like I knew a guy who said his whole thing, like, he always instructed people when they're waking him up after the surgery. He's like, I seem to like have like a fight or flight reaction when I'm woken up out of it. So like, wake me up at a distance in case my hands flail or something. I don't want to like smack you in the face. And they're like, cool.
I'm a highly trained operative, and I will karate
Turns
chop
out
you in
I
the
actually
face.
ran down the hall, got
Yeah, I might
20
think you're
meters
trying to
before
kill
I
me.
was tackled by the nearest orderly.
No.
But my thing seems I get a bit flirty when I am coming
a
out.
bit saucy.
Like,
You're
not
always
like,
flirty. I don't know
not-
if anyone's ever told you this.
Not
You
like
flirt with me all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do about
It's
it.
embarrassing.
You're such
really.
a handsome devil, Adam. Like not like nothing sleazy or nothing suave either. It's just usually they're like, oh, how you feeling, hun? Would you like an icy pole or something? Because you've come out, and I was like, oh my god, yes, you're so pretty. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Marry me? Like I just,
Mommy,
I just
sorry. Mommy,
fawn
sorry.
over them.
Mommy, sorry. Mommy,
Yeah.
sorry.
I just seem to fawn over my nurses when I'm coming out of general. So.
I think I just get goofy. I'm just myself, but more of a dickhead. So that's good to know. You might have noticed that this is a news and politics podcast. Where we are 11 minutes into anesthetic chat, but that's not a regular segment of the show, rest assured.
Some people like the tangents, George, and
we're
give
here-
people what they want.
We're here for the tangents, and because it is a podcast, no one's cutting us off. So I do what I want. So
It's like Star Casino.
just like Star Casino. Yes, hell yeah. That's a fucking segue to He's back, ladies and gentlemen. He's back.
He's back. He's back.
So
Wasn't the appendix that was giving us all the good content?
no, it's
was
definitely the liver. Because of all the drinking. Star Casino has been found not suitable to run a casino in New South Wales, which is problematic as a casino because running a casino is the thing that they do. So recently, an inquiry
It was
was
an inquiry.
led, love a good inquiry, was led by Adam Bell, SC, as held earlier this year and heard allegations of money laundering, organised crime links and fraud at the Star Casino in Pyrmont in New South Wales.
Piedmont?
Piedmont?
I believe.
P-Y-R.
Piedmont. Yeah, I think it's Piedmont.
Piedmont. Even the thing that I really liked about this article, I say liked in a sort of a shout and freudy kind of way because I think the gambling industry is parasitic and disgusting, is that the allegations of misconduct allegedly continued after the inquiry had commenced, which I think is bold. It's like, we're having an inquiry into Star Casino and they're like, let's just get in a couple of quick lines of corruption before... Just a snifter of corruption before Christmas. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah. We understand we're being investigated. Yes, it's like Tony Soprano. It's like the FBI's outside his door. It's like, let me just do some quick organized crime while I'm just mopping everything up. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, that
so
is
dumb.
bold, but I think it's also a weird look if it's like, so you're currently under investigation, and they're like, well, we're going to change up everything we do. Like,
Yeah,
we're
that's a good point.
innocent, but we're going to completely change
half
our
our
business.
workforce.
And like, half the workforce is gone. We've changed leaders, and there's a whole bunch of things we just don't do anymore. Like, people from overseas are no longer allowed to come and gamble at our venue. What? It's like, no, we're innocent, but we're just not allowing anyone from overseas to come. Some of the allegations are that you've been bringing in overseas high rollers.
Heck yeah. No hablo.
Yeah,
Does that
so
work?
it does look a bit suspicious if you are completely changing your business operations while you're being investigated.
That's a good point.
If you've got
kind of the
nothing to
same-
hide.
It's
So
kind of the same stuff though that because Crown was found.
they're a
to have
casino.
done.
This is what casinos do. Is they like if you think about the business model for a casino, the business model for a casino is idiots.
Human suffering?
Yes, capitalizing on the human suffering of idiots and people who have addictions. But like the business model is you come and bring cash to a organization, to a building, you play some games, you lose those games, you leave the cash, you go away. Like, if that is not a business model that is rife for situations that might, involve money laundering, or like I could not think of a thing that is more inclined to enable these kind of corrupt behaviors than a casino. Like if I had to design a thing that is like, let us design a way of, creating corruption, it would look a lot like the roulette wheel. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like it's really, it is inherent in the business model, and which is why the allegations are more or less the same as Crown Casino in Melbourne and other casinos across the world that have faced similar investigations. The business model, to a certain extent, I think is predicated on incentivizing these kinds of behaviors. Philip Crawford, the New South Wales Independent Casino Commission Chief, said the report made for, quote, sad reading and detailed Star's, quote, scant regard for harm minimization. Man, I expected so much more out of these multimillionaire casino operators. It's really sad. Sometimes you wake up in the morning and you think, I'm the Independent Casino Commission Chief. Maybe I'll hear about all the good work that the casinos are doing to, cure cancer or or help out those less fortunate in the community. But it turns out there's been allegations of corruption and institutional arrogance. What a surprise.
Also just a lovely use of the word scant.
Yep.
Underused word to say, scant regard.
It's
I feel like that word's been buried in like describing people as scantily clad. It's like yes, that's a term, but let's use scant in its other uses. It's good. It's a good one. It sounds good.
Scant that you hear it used in regular conversation. Philip Crawford says senior executives, quote, didn't have a clue what was going on in the company, which I think is a very generous reading of this report, because
yes, that is a big red flag.
Well, it's just kind of like, as an executive, as someone who's doing an MBA, I now feel empowered by the power of MBA. I give you the capacity to talk about business things. It does seem like one of the chief responsibilities of an executive in an organization is to know the thing that's going on in the organization. Someone could say that that's the whole job, is to know the things that are going on. So like the most charitable reading of this is they are very bad at their jobs. And the least charitable reading of this is that they actively participated in corruption and covering up corruption, which I think personally is probably the more likely scenario.
Well, there has been a bit of an exodus, I think, at the casino. So I think the CEO has been changed. They've got an interim CEO, I think, at the moment.
And good thing to do in the middle of an inquiry.
They've got 14 days to respond to the report, and the New South Gov. And keep in mind, the report has the inquiry's report. The report from the inquiry has a number of recommendations, which the New South Wales government is going to consider.
And we've actually got some live audio from inside the Star Casino boardroom as to what they're planning to do to respond to some of these allegations. Would you guys like to hear some of that audio?
Sure. Let's cross the line.
Fuck! Oh, fuck! Oh, sweet, merciful Jesus! Yeah, and I don't know if you can see it visually. There was a guy running around on fire in the background there. So, I've set the dog off.
Yeah.
There is a dog also in the boardroom.
The dog was in the boardroom as part of it.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, very aware of the goings on.
Yeah, the dog was in on it.
A few people in the know.
Well, the dogs. There is that famous painting of the dogs playing poker. So maybe the dog's a little more in the know. Maybe he's the mastermind behind it all. No one ever suspects the butterfly.
Dogs invented the gambling industry.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, when this happened to Crown, it took them nearly 18 months to address the issues identified by the Bergen inquiry, which was
now it's perfect.
Victoria.
Yep.
And that they could issue potentially a provisional license, but it might take, because Star is so broken, it might take them a little bit longer to fix their culture, according to Mr. Crawford. But
I don't understand how
the question for the government.
Star,
this is the thing I don't understand.
Star Casino Group admitted at the start of the inquiry that they were unsuitable to hold the license. Like at the start of the inquiry, and it's like now the end of the inquiry, so much more has come out, and they're like, but now we're good. Now we're suitable.
What do they do now? Like, what do they do now? Because like there's an economic impact. The state government now has to go, well, now they've got to do they just revoke the license and then that's it, or do they?
Well, yeah, it could be revocation of the license. It could be fines. The thing that I find interesting is there's no adverse finding against individual directors or board members.
No.
Which, like, it just kind of feels like, man, this is the thing that happens. Is like, and there's kind of like a good summation of why the whole structure of a corporation is kind of broken in certain respects. The whole reason a corporate structure exists, essentially, is to
obfuscate responsibility.
Is to obfuscate. Yeah, exactly right. It's like if I, an individual, George, break a window, I, George, am personally responsible for making sure that window gets fixed up, okay, and is made safe. If a corporation does it, the corporation might be fined, but the individuals, the decision, unless it's like horrendously criminally negligent, the individuals that made the organization, the individuals in the organization that made the decision that led to the breaking of windows don't ever face any sort of consequences. Like, the organization might get penalized, a fine, but what's a fine to a casino? You know what I mean? Like,
and the employee that broke the window might face some punishment, but the people whose idea to direct them to break the window,
yeah, exactly,
they'll get a job at
they'll get a golden parachute,
PricewaterhouseCoopers or something.
Yeah, they'll get a job at the Optus as the chief window breaker.
Good one. It is. I do find it sad that the system that we've set up doesn't allow for this kind of personal responsibility. Like, famously, after the 2008 global financial crisis, I don't think there were any like major corporate executives that were. I think there was like some like middle manager, like loan manager guy in some middle American state that got arrested, but like none of the people that actually created the system that perpetuated the problem actually were jailed or imprisoned or face any sort of charges. Like, it is a complete
look at it this way. The casino
abnegation of a responsibility as an executive, which is to shepherd the organization in a way that is profitable and ethical. Like, that is the purpose.
Star's annual revenue, this is from August 22nd, so last year, was 1.55 billion.
Yeah, so what fine?
This year, it's 1.53 billion.
A devastating loss. What will the capitalists do?
Yeah, oh no, Star's circling the drain.
But, this is the whole point of having an organizational structure, having people in charge, is that you guide the organization in such a way as to create value for shareholders as well as obey the law. And if the organization is found to not be doing that, who else should be found responsible but for the chief executive? I don't think it's good enough, the executive team, rather, I should say. It's not good enough to be like, oh, we didn't know what was happening in our own company. I just do emails, really. That's really all I do, is I just sit here doing emails. I work from home, so I don't really know.
And I don't even do the emails. My assistant does that.
Right. It's just so very not good enough to be like, no, they didn't know what was going on in their own company. It's like, well, then what is the point of you? What value are you adding to the organization if you don't know what happens in its doors?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I have worked at bureaucratic organizations before, and I do know that, sometimes it's a bit hard to sort of see the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. But yeah, you
don't accidentally get junkets in from Asia to spend, questionable money in your casinos and then cover it up on accident. Like, these things are not things that happen by accident. So there is a whole system in place.
The fact that it was deliberately covered up as well is like, someone knew that it was wrong. Like, it wasn't like they did it and it was just sitting there, like, for the world to see. They did it and they saw what happened to crowd and they went,
It's weird that they can find the guy counting cards and kick him out, but Asian businessmen with large duffel bags of money coming through on a weekly basis. You know what I mean? Like, that for some reason escaped their keen eyes, but the guy who seems to win too much at blackjack, we've got this motherfucker down. To take him down, section 3.
Their money. Yeah, the businessmen coming through losing their money and leaving it at the casino. The card counting guy is trying to take it back.
But these junkets, and this is a part of the same sort of issue that Crown had, is like a junket. Junkets don't happen by accident. Junket is when like a bunch of wealthy businessmen and, like high rollers are sort of flown in for the purposes of like gambling and like.
It's a high rollers Kentucky tour.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of moving parts. You know, obviously there's hotel staff that are aware of these people. They're given priority, sort of VIP access. Often cases they're provided with, in previous cases, similar to this in the past, they've been provided with drugs or sex workers, or like this is a whole organizational effort that does not occur without the knowledge and buy-in of some people. Now, whether the senior executives did that or knew about that, I don't know. But what I'm saying is like junkets do not happen by accident. It is a concerted effort that casinos make to get that. And this is the whole point of the report, is that they're more focused on money than ethics, more focused on hitting their fucking KPIs and getting some growth in their fucking portfolio, because you need, targets of 10% growth, Alex. So you just got to smile and dial, mate. We just got to get some fucking money in. And all this sort of pressure to increase revenue targets means people do questionable things.
Yep. Exponential growth. Woo!
Yeah.
Something capitalism bad.
Sad reading.
Yes, very sad reading.
Did we have
Let's talk about the weather. Isn't it more exciting?
You know what I love is talking about the weather. People love that as a conversational tool. It's a way to really allow people to relate to one another. So La Niña's coming back.
La Niña.
Hot La Niña summer.
Yeah. So
La Niña's not the hot one?
No, La Niña is the hot, wet one. So there's
hot, wet one.
El Niña, just like, I'm not going to make that joke. La Niña is the hot, wet one. El Niño is the hot, dry one. So
yeah. So it's summer. It's hot. It'll be hot no matter what. But she gonna be wet. And it's going to be very unpleasant. Like, remember there was that funky stat from earlier this year where we'd had like a year's worth of rainfall like by halfway through this year, as a result of La Niña events and all that sort of stuff. So we're just going to have more of them. Woo!
Yeah. So it's basically a sort of a weather, a pattern of sort of weather systems that, and whether it's El Nino or El Nino dictate whether the sort of summer is likely to be sort of very wet or very dry. So this is the third one in a row, which is kind of unusual.
Yep.
It's not like a massive anomaly to get sort of three in a row like this, but I mean, it's not good considering, like you said, I remember there was that stat, there was a week in Sydney where
floods in Sydney earlier this year,
where they had the equivalent rainfall of the UK's year in 1 week.
But George, the farmers need it, Dale. The farmers need the rain.
Yeah, farmers.
It's good,
Farmers need some rain as long as they don't get washed away in the resulting floods.
Yes,
some rain
it is
good,
a very interesting kind of weather event because it's like great news for anyone concerned about fire season. Like it makes the, if it's wetter, it's harder to burn, but also floods. Yeah. So it's like, you're trading one evil for another in that sense.
It's great. It's great for the fire season, this fire season. And then you have, what's the other one? El Nino.
El Nino.
El Nino and La Niña. Is that it?
When you get the big dry one.
So white.
So white, man. We get the big dry one, then all the wet stuff and all the growth that's come up, that dries out, and you've got a giant fucking petrol tin just like sitting out in the bush, which is ready to go up. So it's a vicious cycle. You have vicious floods, and then you have
intense burning.
Fucking intense burning, right? It's like it's if you keep having these cycles on repeat, it actually ends up they make each other worse to a certain degree.
Yeah. The natural disasters are teaming up. It's a real Justice League of fuckery.
Well, that was the thing with the bushfires in 2019 was that they'd had, X amount of years of just fuel just sitting there without any, and it's one of the not all of it.
Well, and also there's all the issues of not being able to conduct burn-offs due to like unsafe conditions and things like that. So,
But so it means that, nature heals, but then nature burns as well. But interesting this week as well.
Nature
that,
forgives,
like,
but she never forgets.
we haven't even talked about Pakistan.
Yeah,
Like,
Pakistan has
floods in Pakistan.
We haven't even talked about Pakistan. Pakistan is
Yeah.
is underwater right now. It's still underwater. Like, they had massive floods like 2-3 weeks ago, but most of the country, like in certain provinces, like it's like if the entirety of Victoria, or not Victoria, but like imagine half of Victoria perhaps, just went underwater.
Yeah. They were devastating floods.
Yeah, I think ultimately it was something like 35 million Pakistanis were displaced as a result of the floods, which is like more than the entire population of Australia. Imagine all of Australia got displaced and the havoc that would wreak. There was footage of whole sort of buildings getting washed away and, bridges collapsing. And it was terrifying. And we're lucky here in Australia that we don't live, like, I suppose the most northern reaches of Australia are in sort of tropical or, subtropical
like
latitudes.
Flood and cyclone zones.
But the majority of Australia is like pretty temperate, and we experience like horrendous results of these weather systems and climate change. And I think that's the important thing to touch on here is that like these kinds of weather events are getting stronger and more frequent and, more damaging. And I don't think we can deny, like, even the most skeptical person at this point can't really deny that climate change has an effect on this. But we're largely...
They will.
Well, yeah, exactly. They will.
Yeah. They can't deny it, but they will.
But we're a rich country. We can deal with this. Lismore goes underwater and we can sort of relocate some of the town to a hillside. And that's, apparently what they're doing. Like, we can sort of fix it. But when you're a country like Pakistan with hundreds of millions of people and they're all poor as shit, like, a lot of those people are just going to have their lives permanently ruined as a result of these climate change catastrophes. And where do you think they're going to go? For all the white racists here in Australia, they're like, get out me country, fuck off, we're full, are also the people that deny climate change.
And
it's like,
where do you think
come over in your
boats or whatever? Like, fucking, what are you fleeing from? Go back to where you came from. Where I came from is underwater.
Yeah, legitimately. And so
I cannot live there.
Where do you think they're going to go? Like, so I think we should propose it to Pauline Hanson, to the white racists of Australia, as an anti-immigration policy in order to do something about climate change. I think that might sway them. What do you think?
That might actually work. I feel that's the BoJack Horseman. Tell them the shooter was a woman, and they'll be all for gun control.
yeah.
That's genius, George. I think print. Let's go. I don't know.
Like,
there's probably people we know who could make this campaign happen.
If you really want to keep the Browns out of Australia, let's fix climate change.
One of the
don't isolate that clip. Don't isolate that.
I got a bit of a click hole the other day, and I was listening to some Jordan Peterson. Frequently pops up.
You did get deep into a click hole.
I watched a couple of them, and now I'm just sort of like, I wonder what do you think. And then now it's like, hey, you're a young white male, would you like some Jordan Peterson? Like, just the algorithm is just like,
do you want to eat nothing but beef and shit yourself?
That's literally it.
And you have to grapple with the dragon within, and that's no joke.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
That's no joke. No, I'm serious. No, I'm serious.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who. That is... I think that's a Hall of Famer.
That's got to be it sounds like a Simpsons joke, like that. Yes. But he actually said that.
Yeah,
he actually said that, and he said it in front of like the grey, stormy background we all had like family photos in front of as children, and he had a decent lighting rig.
The background they have when people get their dead photos done.
Everyone has. Yes. Like, I don't know what it is about a cloudy, stormy night that is perfect for family pictures. I don't know. Maybe it brings out colors. I don't know. But yeah, in front of one of them with amazing studio lighting and in all fucking seriousness with no sense of irony, delivered that villain line. I mean,
yeah, it does kind of sound like the kind of thing that
a
villain delivers into the camera right before he's like in a Bond film, right before the plan starts unraveling. And you see it in Times Square, you see it in Tokyo, you see it in you see it in all the big screens all around the world.
It's what the fucking Riddler would drop at the end of a video in Gotham, like, just to be like, Up yours, Batman. We'll see who cancels who. And then the green question mark comes up and the people of Gotham panic and all the clown dudes run in the street and beat everybody. And
so for everyone's reference, what they're talking about is this is when he got banned from Twitter, was it, or something else?
Banned from Twitter. Banned from Twitter for
it was for dead naming someone?
Deliberately dead naming Elliot Page.
Yeah. So dead naming is when with a trans person you refer to them by their old name. So in the case of
their previous
Elliot
name.
Page used to be was Ellen Page and is now identified as Elliot Page, male-bodied person. And so I guess referred to Elliot as Ellen, and that is against Twitter's terms of service. So it's like that is not Twitter's a private organization with their rules, and if they say their rule is you can't dead name someone, then you can't dead name someone. That's the rule.
Like they have decided that they have taken the stance, the correct one, that dead naming someone intentionally is a form of harassment.
You're not doing it to be nice. You're doing it to shitpost on someone, right? So
then he was kicked off Twitter. So he did his 15-minute long villain monologue on YouTube about how he was wronged and he would not. They've banned me off there, and if I come back, I'm never deleting the tweet. Like, whatever, up yours, all that sort of stuff. Came back. I don't know if I talked about this on the show.
I saw this. Not on the show, but you told us about it.
Separately. That he was brought back to Twitter. I don't know how he fucking got onto Jordan Peterson.
I've got a comment I was trying to make about Jordan Peterson in relation to the climate stuff, but you guys have gone off on a tangent.
No, we've just gone off on a tangent. But he came back onto Twitter somehow after what he did, and he tweeted something like I had to take down the tweet due to some unrelated cleanup, but I'm posting a screenshot of it here because when I said I wouldn't delete it, I meant it. And everyone's like, so A, you did delete it, and B, you're just doing the same thing again. I don't know if anything came of it. I reported it to Twitter and just went like, you banned him for doing this. And he essentially just did it again. So, what? I don't know if he's still on Twitter.
I love the idea of international best-selling author Jordan B. Peterson being like cancelled because he can't tweet. It's like him and his millions of Patreon followers and fans of his podcast and followers of his YouTube videos. Like, oh no, how will he get the word out? I think he's fine.
No, I'm so cancelled, and guys, especially all that stuff with InfoWars we heard about recently of like, after you were banned from every social media platform, your numbers went up. So, so silenced.
There was
I am writing a column in the National Masthead about how silenced I am.
There was a bit in, I think it was on a Joe Rogan podcast where a little axis of evil there, where they were talking, he said the quiet part out loud. He said like, something to the effect of like, I've managed to monetize liberal outrage. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of the business model. And it's a shame because as someone who was like, I used to have a bit of respect for Jordan Peterson because there's someone who has no religious tradition to sort of fall back on. His first book, was it 12?
12 Rules to Live
By. 12 Rules for Life or something like that. I watched some of his biblical lectures and I was like, okay, as someone who has no appreciation for religion, I can get something out of this in relation to, morality and the Judeo-Christian ethic, like understanding from like a Jungian perspective, the value of these meta-narratives and how they've impacted Western culture,
Western society.
And that's like, there is something valuable in that. I think it's worth understanding those things. But then he got into a bunch of like you said, Tom, he just embraced the darkness and became the right-wing villain that people always criticized him for being at some point. And it's just like, I remember he had a couple of podcasts on, basically sort of minimizing climate change. And, you realize that the guy is less a like thoughtful right-wing thought leader than he is just like the same as every other right-wing shit poster on the internet. Like, Ben Shapiro or all these other guys, like eventually they just kind of become the same person. I don't know what it is, but...
So the original point I was trying to make about all this was, anyway, so what he was saying was that in relation to climate change, he goes, the way to get out of climate change, and he's basing this off some other people's specific. He's like, there's a lot of stuff out there. With I can't do his accent.
Probably referencing Bjorn Lomborg. That was the guy.
Yeah,
that was
he's referencing a couple of different people.
Yeah.
But basically, he said one of the things that he agrees with from these people is that the way to get out of climate change or to fix the climate disaster is to massively increase all the poor people's wealth, right? So you bring everyone out of poverty, which enables them to better deal with catastrophes and situations and that kind of thing. But the way that he then said to do that, which is the caveat, which is you just got to introduce free market capital and just lots of free markets and the free market.
The free market will fix everything.
Will just save everything. Like, no. But the concept, though, is interesting, which is bring it back to the Pakistan discussion, which is that, if in Australia we have insurance, there are government schemes, there's a population that isn't that bad. So, like, economically, we've got some, not infinite, but we've got some resilience to catastrophes that may or may not happen, right? Whereas in Pakistan, if, your only asset is potentially the brick structure you're living in and that goes underwater, then...
Like, your shop or something, like, where your place of work and...
those people have no resilience.
And developing countries have rightly made this point, like, hey, the Western world has gotten rich off a century of economic activity that was predicated on extraction of fossil fuels. And, like, we've not had the chance to do that. And so, all of these countries that are, like Pakistan and India being chief amongst them, it's like, well, we've got a population that's still very rural, not very developed, hasn't got access to all these resources, and... they're having to use very dirty forms of energy to power to fund, feed their existence, coal fires and things like that. So you can't turn around to us and go, oh, you guys are polluters, when you guys have had the benefit of, you've benefited off a century of fossil fuels enriching your society and upgrading you into better energy systems and better networks and electrical and all this sort of stuff, and then turn around to the developing countries and say, oh, you got to, and sort of wag your finger and say, you got to get onto nice, clean electric Tesla power grids when they're still, cooking with, with wood and coal fires. Yeah, butane, exactly. Yeah. Like it is incredibly hypocritical of these Western countries to say that. And yes, economic development is an important part of that. And yes, the capitalist system has dragged a bunch of people out of poverty over the last 30, 40 years, and that is a big deal. But the capitalist economy is not incentivized to de-poor people. That is not the purpose of the capitalistic economy. The purpose of the capitalist economy, I'll tell you because I'm studying it, is to deliver value to shareholders. And a byproduct of that tends to be that over time, people get dragged out of poverty because there's more services, there's more consumers, there's more products to buy and sell, and people get, as a rising tide raises all boats, to use a slightly contradictory metaphor there. But the purpose of that's a byproduct of the capitalist system. And there's also a bunch of negative externalities like pollution and climate change.
Use the word externalities.
Things that are external to the organization. Like a coal company can create a lot of value to its shareholders, but the consequence of that is pollution, is carbon dioxide being released into the atmosphere that causes these adverse weather events. That's external to the company. That's what an externality is. And the capitalist system has no way of accounting for that. Like the way that and that's why they've proposed a carbon tax and all these other kind of mechanisms to basically capture the cost, the real cost to society, as to the activities that these companies do, and then give those costs back to them so that the real price of those materials is reflected in what you pay for it, not in what we all pay for it in polluted air and carbon dioxide and all that sort of stuff. So, but that is a government mechanism. That is not something that the free market will just handle itself. What we've done up until this point has been to say, let the free market do what it's going to do. It's going to improve things. And like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, at each point we've been going, the free market will sort it out. And guess what? The free market hasn't sorted it out because it's not set up to do that. Thank you.
All of this.
This ends finance chat.
This ends finance chat with George today.
Oh, just wait till we start talking about interest rates.
But so it's going to be wet. It's basically the summer. Is what we were going to say. It's going to be wet this summer in Australia.
This summer.
Yeah.
We could go into the science of what El Nino is, but that would be really boring. So we're not going to do that.
La Niña.
La
La
Nina.
Niña. El Nino is the other one.
La Niña.
It's written on the screen in front of you, Adam.
I just close the tab, so
I sent you the article.
Right. Yeah, you're just like waffling now. You're just like, I'm like, we'll do it live.
We'll do it live. Anyway, Ukraine.
Speaking
of energy crises and also other terrible things, Ukraine.
So there's been a lot of movement over the last week and a half. President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Ukraine has recaptured around 8,000 square kilometers in the northeastern region of Ukraine, known as Kharkiv. So a bunch of cities have been liberated. Unfortunately, some of those liberated cities have been destroyed in the liberation of them. So the freshly liberated city of Izium, which Russia has been using as a logistics hub in the region, was basically entirely destroyed. To the east, a mass burial site was found containing 440 bodies. So like a lot of these places are being liberated and people are really grateful to be liberated from Russian occupation. But what we're also uncovering now is the extent of the devastation and mass murders I don't know if it's a genocide because I didn't look up the definition. It feels genocide-y.
Well, I think
the stories about the mass graves and sort of things
just
that they were finding
executions.
Is harrowing shit.
I mean, this happened previously when they had a counteroffensive, after the initial stages where they took back parts of, Kiev and around Kharkiv as well. But a lot of it seems to be from when the Russians advanced through that area. Previously, they were obviously shelling everything. So once they've occupied the region, they've then gone through and cleaned it up a little bit, I guess, in the sense that they've got all the bodies and they've just buried them.
They're really good housekeepers. That's
so whether or not they were, they may not have been necessarily mass executions where they just push everyone into a hole and shoot them.
There's definitely been reports of that sort of stuff as well.
There's been reports of that, but it may well just be from, shelling, people just dying of starvation, which is all still, in terms of the laws of war, very illegal.
Fucking awful, yeah.
I mean, there are, in terms of the war crimes, there's...
Killing civilians, bit of a no-no.
There's about 2,800, I think, cases that have been lodged in terms of things that are currently being investigated. In terms of war crimes, interestingly enough, Ukraine isn't actually a member of I think it's the International Criminal Court, but they have said that they will respect the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. So,
unlike the USA,
I mean, unlike the USA and unlike Russia, so there will be, like if you look at like war crimes and stuff that happened in Africa and in like Serbia and the Balkans, they took 20 years for a lot of these things to sort of seek justice.
What's his name? Miladovich only went to trial a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
from the Srebrenica massacre. Like that's a thing. Yeah, it takes decades for these people to face justice if they ever do. So,
I mean, at the very least, what it does is because we've got so much more evidence now, we've got so much more information that we're able to gather, whether it be, videos on phones, digital information, satellite imagery, whatever else. We can put together cases a lot more clearly rather than just witness testimonials. So there is a possibility that some of this stuff may accelerate a bit quicker than it has in the past. The other thing, because all these people will just flee to Russia, at the very least, it'll mean they'll just stay in Russia for the rest of their lives and won't be able to leave. And it's pretty, I think, interestingly, with the ground that they've recovered, they did a bit of a... Ukraine did a classic, look over here, look over here, look over here. This is where all the cool stuff's happening. And then they did some stuff down there in Kherson, down the south near the coast. And then they were like, hey, surprise offensive up on the north. And
this is what we were talking about last week, right? That they were sort of saying, our plan is to attack at the south. And it's like, are you just announcing your plans on the TV? Like, I'm pretty sure they get TV in Russia, bro. You're just giving away the game. It's like, surprise, we're up north.
It worked because they pushed a lot of troops out of the north to go reinforce the south. And the other thing that I heard a commentators talk about the other day was that what they did, which was also really interesting, is they mobilized without massing large formations together. So it's also another reason why you might not see tactical nuclear weapons deployed, because there's no targets to really hit them with. So what they've done is they've staged division-sized elements, not as divisions. They've spread them out, so the Russians can't actually see where troops are massing.
It's kind of sounds a little bit like the strategy of the Taliban in Afghanistan, right? That kind of like, what do you call that?
Well, that's guerrilla warfare.
Guerrilla warfare, yeah, exactly.
Which is, and that's one of the last sort of phase of guerrilla warfare, is where you transition to a traditional offensive, but you do it, without them sort of realizing what's happening. Anyway, so that's part of the reason why they were so successful in the north, is that their intel didn't pick up that there were troops being massed in that area. So it's a really, like, in terms of the tactics and stuff they've used, I'm sure they've had Western help, but it's a really, like, interesting. I mean, Andrew Bolt called it, like, and Andrew Bolt's got no idea, but the phrase he used
Andrew Bolt's got no idea is actually the name of his new podcast.
I mean, he has as much of an idea as we do.
He said it was something similar to, like, it's the most stunning battlefield victory in the last, like, 80 years or something, which is probably a bit of a grandiose statement.
I was going to say,
like
doesn't
that includes the Second World War, doesn't it?
That includes the Second World War, right?
Yeah. I'm paraphrasing pretty massively. But
that's wow. I mean, I don't have any World War II examples off the top of my head to refute it, but I'm pretty sure surely something happened.
I don't know, Vietnam. Something in Vietnam must have happened.
Dien Bien Phu was a pretty massive humiliation for the French. But the thing now is that, like, obviously that why this is important is that they've obviously made up ground. They're going to keep pushing. Hopefully, if they can take Kherson, that'll really shift the momentum. But what it means is winter is coming.
So much about Ukrainian geography as a result of this. I swear to God, that's the only way that the wider world learns about geography, is when various places are being bombed or invaded. And then all of a sudden, like, we know the names of, certain districts in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's like, Kabul, we know the name of Kabul now. Like, it's only because various things are blowing up there that it, enters the public consciousness at all. But
it's a grim realization.
It's pretty grim. It's a grim show today, for a change.
Yeah. What'll be interesting is because winter is coming, and, like, in terms of material, like, the Russians have had, like, something about at least 6,500 pieces of equipment, like tanks, artillery, that kind of thing, destroyed. The Ukrainians have had about 1,500 or so destroyed. But the thing is, the Ukrainian, like, casualty list is a greater proportion of their total, whereas for Russia, that 6,500 is just a fraction. So the question is, once winter hits and everything sort of grinds to a halt, assuming it will grind to a halt, does the West keep feeding money and material to Ukraine? Meanwhile, Russia turns the taps off and no one can turn a heater on in Germany during the winter. Like, how's this all going to play out? So the Ukrainians need some wins to sort of boost their publicity, I guess, their position, the negotiating power, prior to winter setting in. And if, it could be, things could get really bad in Europe this winter, to the point where you've got people having rolling blackouts and not being able to heat themselves, heat their accommodation.
Well, I mean, the rolling blackouts, and then there's just the cost of living issues as well that are making people worried about heating their homes during the bitter cold winters. I mean, we say it gets cold here, like fucking a European winter.
And there's all sorts of activity on the financial markets that's sort of pricing in a lot of this uncertainty. And when you see futures on energy prices being sort of 1,500% of what they normally are, that signals some potential market freakouts coming down the pike. So that's not good. And it doesn't seem, the thing that I'm really concerned about there is that it doesn't seem like a lot of European economies have a good response to that. like Liz Truss, we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, her sort of big response, that she was talking about in relation to this was just like subsidizing
pork market.
So opening new pork markets was essentially just subsidizing the energy companies and sort of capping prices. So it's like, but that doesn't actually really address any of the, like, it doesn't seem like there are any good policy responses to this, or certainly they're not coming up. They're not voicing any good responses to this as far as I can tell. So that's a bit scary.
Was that the interview? What was the fucking quote? Like saying, I don't think profit is a dirty word.
Yeah.
Was that interview where she was announcing our policy on this sort of thing? Like, people are criticizing that we're doing this that helps like the actual energy companies do the thing, being like, profit's not a dirty word. They're allowed to make profits.
The woman is so just like weapons grade stupid. Like I have no time for Liz Truss, but it's no one is turning it into some like lots of people here own businesses and they love profit. It's like no one focus, Liz. You got to focus. You got to keep your eye on the ball, dummy. Like it's just that's not what anyone is like turning it into some sort of like positive spin for big business, and that's good for you. Fish and chip shop owner is just like ludicrous and either ignorant or negligent in the extreme. So like no one is saying that this is a broader problem around how energy filters into this economy that needs to be addressed, and your problem is to just like throw some cash at it. It like doesn't actually address any of the main concerns.
Got to make sure they keep voting for you.
I mean, to link it back to the climate change thing, it is also one of the reason why, European world markets need to become more energy resilient and have a diversification of their energy mix.
Well, it's a good excuse to act on climate change as well. Yeah. How many crises as we has the West had in the last 40 or 50 years directly related to the supply of fossil fuels, to the supply of energy, like the Iran crisis in the late 70s. Like, how many times does this need to happen where we're relying on some Saudi dictator to go, maybe I'll turn it up and maybe I'll turn it down. I don't know. It down. Like, it's just like...
that feels dicey.
How many times do we need to be at the mercy of, Saudi Arabian dictators? Yeah. How often, how many times does this need to happen to us before we start going, maybe we need to start getting off fossil fuels because it's a fucking danger to us, like a security risk, not just like, how do we heat our houses and make sure that poor people don't die in freezing cold, but also like...
Which is also important.
Sure. But as I'm speaking to the conservatives now here, Tom. How do we make sure that we keep making profits? That's the most important thing, is how do we make sure that the consumer economy keeps turning, okay? And we can't do that if we've all frozen in the snow like Jack Nicholson in The Shining.
Yeah, I still think actually your idea earlier in the show of like reframe it to be like you don't want foreigners trying to seek asylum here. Well, let's act on climate change so as their homes don't get destroyed and and maybe they'll stay.
It might be one of the more cynical policy proposals I've put forward, but I think it'll work.
I think it'll work because climate refugees are a thing.
Yeah.
So
I mean, to be fair, like that won't happen overnight. They need a solution that's going to be implemented in the next 6 months.
But what I'm not hearing is like a any sort of governments talking about like radical action to electrify housing. What we're doing is we're putting $100 billion into electrifying the country. And that's going to involve solar panels. That's going to involve battery storage. That's going to involve there are things that you could do. Granted, it's not going to offset the entire economy's reliance on natural gas and other fossil fuels, but there are things that you could do in the next...
It's not going to happen overnight, but you got to start.
But there are things that you could operationalize in the next 6 months that would make a big fucking difference. Like the government is going to subsidize, is going to pay for, electrification of just the heating apparatus and nothing else. Like
in the middle of winter when there's no sun, like solar isn't necessarily going to fix the UK's
but then it's about the problem of generating enough electricity, right? And that is a solvable problem rather than the problem that we have now, or that Europe has now, which is like we're completely reliant on natural gas and Vladimir Putin's turned off the spigot. Like that's the situation that we're in now. Yeah. So like, why not at least make the attempt to have some like a radical transformation to try and at least offset a portion of the distress that's going to be caused. But I'm not hearing any of that. All I'm hearing is like, Germany shit's real fucked. Shit's going to keep being like, it's looking really bad. And they're like, yeah, it's looking really bad. 6 months from now, we're really going to be fucked.
You're the prime minister.
Yeah.
So exactly. Germany's solution is they're going to keep one of their nuclear power plants open they were going to close, I think, this year. So that's
they weren't closing it for a reason other than, we just need to get rid of it.
30 years old. It's
good.
Outdated.
So I'm assuming it's outdated. So what I'm hearing is maybe unsafe. I don't know. If it's outdated and they're closing it, I'm no expert. Please don't take that as a definite advice to panic. But it's I don't know.
Are you saying we should crack open each other's heads and feast on the goo inside?
Yes, I would, Kent.
It seems like the response is just like, oh, well, we'll scale up dirty coal again. And it's like, no, we should probably use this as an impetus to change our system rather than just.
So what I'm hearing,
it's just like, do we go with this very dirty fuel that we can't get, that we can't get right now? Or do we go back to the even dirtier fuel that we had before that? It's just like, it just seems like at no point is anyone taking this as an impetus for change. Which it is.
Well, what I'm hearing, George, is we need to switch to clean coal.
The cleanest coal. What we do is we get the coal.
Best of both worlds.
And we hose it down. And now it's clean.
Yeah.
It's clean coal.
Hose it down. Give it a bit of a spit polish, toothbrush.
Mm-hmm.
Scruff it up a bit.
Yep. We'll get one of those. We'll get one of those little chimney sweep boys out the front of Parliament to give it a shoe shine, and she'll be right. Yeah, I'm not hearing any substantive
chimney sweep boy to shine someone's shoes.
You know what I'm saying? I just wanted the pause. I was just had like a Mary Poppins idea of a poor kid from the 1800s in my head.
Yeah. Please.
I've just brought up an article on what the EU actually wants to do. So they want to impose an obligation of European Union member states to reduce electricity consumption during peak periods, the 10% of hours with the highest expected prices by at least 5%, with the aim of reducing overall demand at least 10% until March 31.
Okay, but turning off your heaters, you know what I mean? Switching off the lights isn't gonna. There is a broader structural problem here
with supply. Yes. Yeah.
So why not do things that unlock other areas of supply and deliver that to the infrastructure for electricity delivery is already there. People already have their homes wired up. It's just a matter of, rather than turning on the gas heater to heat your home, maybe we get out space heaters and we use those and we, distribute those across neighborhoods so people don't, again, freeze to death. Where is the big national, World War II rollout of the defense production agreement and these sorts of things? That, you know what I mean? There should be a mass mobilization in the face of this. And it's just everyone going, man, it's going to be a real problem when winter comes. That's what it seems.
Apparently, a lot of US LNG that used to be sold to Asia has been redirected to Europe, and the Qataris have also struck a deal with a number of European buyers. So
again, it's all predicated on further enriching the fossil fuel economy. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
The solution to the problem is always more fossil fuels from elsewhere, rather than let's get off fossil fuels.
Well, the European Union's, they've got pretty ambitious climate targets by all accounts, but whether or not they're able to implement any of those quickly is another question. So they've got the right heart. They've just got no idea about how to go about it, which is probably the same for here in Australia. We've got a new, the energy climate change legislation, the cap on, what am I trying to say? Cap on emissions. That happened the other week.
It's good though, because I
don't understand how we're going to achieve any of that.
The parts per million of carbon in the atmosphere really cares about our hopes and dreams. So that's really good to know that we've got our hearts in the right place. So that's good.
Yes. I'll share that document into our rundown. Do we want to talk about Matt Guy, or are we?
Let's finish on Matthew Guy. So it was. Finish on Matthew Guy is a sentence that no woman has ever uttered. Opposition leader Matthew Guy has been told to hand over documents to the Victorian Electoral Commission. We reported on that last month. The VEC has since announced that they are conducting a formal investigation into Matt Guy amongst his donation scandal. So it was his chief of staff that resigned after The Age revealed he sought $100,000 in payments for his private marketing company in a draft contract that was never signed. So he subsequently resigned over that situation, and then Matthew Guy appointed the best man to his wedding amidst the Jobs for Mate scandal to show that the Victorian Liberal Party really has its finger on the pulse in terms of what the people want. So that's not good for them.
Yeah, not great.
Are we?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess I don't know how I feel sort of about this, like, the whole this specific situation. But Jesus, in the lead up to the election, am I fucking sick of seeing that guy's face everywhere? Like,
Yeah.
he's trying to appeal to me to want to have him be in my press conferences every day, telling me what's going on in the state, and I can't stand him for 15 seconds in a YouTube ad. It's not the best way to go, Matt.
What are the ads that you've been seeing? What's the?
Oh, like random one of being like, I'm going to take all the money that the Dan Andrews wants to spend on a train and spend it in health. Like,
Yeah.
another version of that where it opens with some guy who says that his father died on his front lawn because an ambulance didn't turn up in time and it's all Dan Andrews' fault. And it's like, I don't know, but is this another fake tradie situation? Who is this person? Like, I didn't see any details of, like, or whatever. Like, it just seems like you put a person in front of a camera, could be an actor. I don't know. I don't want to be too conspiratorial there, but like, yeah, I don't know. Just really
the ads are pretty prolific. I'm getting them a lot, and it's obviously they're spending a lot of money right now. They've hit the go button, and the YouTube ads are flying. The interesting thing about the main thrust, which Tom mentioned, is the one where they are saying we're going to cancel the suburban rail loop, which does have its flaws. To be fair, it hasn't been vetted by Infrastructure Australia, and they're pretty weak on some of the numbers and a few other different things. And they're saying, they're going to spend that in health. But the thing that they're doing there is that they're making it as though there is, like, that's the choice, right? You can have they're framing a choice. They're framing a choice where there isn't. There may not actually be. You por qué no los dos? Like, why not have both?
Yeah.
Particularly because the rail loop, it's a 30-year project or something. Like, we'll be dead by the time it's finished. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's supposed to connect the Werribee lines and was it Werribee and Cheltenham. This is getting deep into like Victorian regional politics stuff here. But like it's I don't know. I think it's I don't know. I haven't seen, like you say, I don't know if the project itself stacks up from a dollar perspective. But like, certainly this is something that Victoria sorely needs. Like, the current situation is you need to go, if you want to go from, Cheltenham to the airport, there's not, an easy way to do that. Werribee, so you sort of got to go for a lot of regions in Melbourne. You sort of need to take the train into Richmond and then back out to other places. And it's really like not a sustainable journey for most people if you're using public transport. If you can have a rail loop that connects all of the different spokes of the bicycle, I could see how that could be really useful and beneficial over the long term. I personally think, like, I'm not adverse to infrastructure spending. Like, almost every economist agrees that spending money on infrastructure is a net good. Like, one of the most obvious things that you can do for the benefit of the economy and of society. So, as to how this particular project stacks up, I don't know. But a poll from that was referenced in The Guardian shows that it's a very popular piece of a popular sort of proposal. So
the train,
a poll of 550 voters, so enough to be statistically significant, shows that 56% of respondents are either indifferent. Are either indifferent or opposed. So that's 31% are indifferent, 25% are opposed, and 44% of respondents strongly support or somewhat support on the project. So if you look at 44% of respondents are supportive, and then 31% are indifferent, it only leaves that 25% who are like strongly opposed.
Really actually don't want it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it seems like a really, like, if that's what you're basing your sort of attack ads on, is pulling down a proposal that is somewhat popular, it doesn't seem like the best way to go about doing it. I don't know.
Wow.
It just
Well,
doesn't
I think what they're doing is they're trying to. It's like the carbon tax. They're trying to take the concept of something and make it evil.
Yeah.
Like without any, like they're trying to change public opinion without actually presenting really any facts.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, to be fair, yeah, there are issues with the project, but you know, the concept that Labor it's like one or the other. You can only have health or rail loop. Like making that a diametric, is that the right word? Choice.
Yeah. We can walk and chew
really-
gum. We should both invest in our failing health infrastructure and do infrastructure. Like we can do both of those things at the same time.
George, we can even do an amazing third thing. Can I talk about the article I just found on the front page of the ABC?
Sure.
It relates to this very topic.
Go.
I'll allow it, but watch yourself, McCoy.
You know, yeah, this better be going somewhere, councillor. We've had Mac Guy and the Liberals in Victoria State have said, like, we're going to be spending more money in health. One of those proposals revolves around a particular hospital, Maroondah Hospital in Ringwood, here in Victoria,
with which I am familiar.
outer eastern suburbs. The Liberal coalition have been talking about $400 million of funding to revamp that hospital. So the Dan Andrews government has responded today, apparently, that they are promising $1 billion revamp of that hospital.
How do you like that, Matty?
Double or nothing. And you know what they'll throw in as well? They'll rename it after Queen Elizabeth II.
Oh, shit. Can't lose.
Stuffed hands of that. Let's fucking double the money and then let's get all those royal hard-ons excited about naming the hospital for the Queen.
Yeah, not only
it's got a bit of ring to it.
Not only do I call your 500 million, I raise you 500 million and a Queen Elizabeth. So you're going to fold on that one, buddy? Or
So what? Are you going to respect the goddamn Queen or are you going to vote for Matty Guy?
I also
A vote for Matt Guy is spitting in the face of the Queen of England. Do you want to spit on her corpse? Then vote for Matt Guy.
First of all, you're going to have to wait 13 hours in a queue, and then you have to vote for Matt Guy.
Then you have to vote for Matt Guy.
I also don't believe for a second that, Matthew Guy has pledged that if elected, he would halt work on the first 26 kilometres of the project and reinvest around $9.6 billion into the health system. Does anyone believe for a second that the state Liberal government has any intention whatsoever of investing additional money into the health system? Like, does that even sound like a credible thing that they would want to do? They're like, no, we want to put it into health and certainly not tax cuts for our mates. That's definitely not what we normally do with excess money.
I think
at this point, the Liberals are looking for any edge they can get, and they will do whatever they can get to make some ground back at the next election. So if that means traditionally reversing a conservative policy, they'll do it because they've been flogged for the last 10 years.
Yeah, they will. They will pledge money into whatever area their base is mad that there isn't enough.
We will put more money into TikTok. What do you want? Tell us what you want.
TikTok. They hate TikTok, George.
Tell us what you want.
Hate the Tim Tams and their Zoomer kids.
We're going to give Cardinal George Pell a Medal of Honor. What do you want? What do you need? We'll give it to you. Whatever it is you want. And the same article from The Guardian talks about how, Dan Andrews is still slated to win a third term in office. It doesn't seem to have dinged him too much. So it's probably going to be a loss of the primary vote a little bit, probably by around 7 or 8 points since the Dan slide of 2018. But the Labor's still expected to hold government in the November election. So
all right,
even despite all of these like bad faith attacks from Matthew Guy, it's still looking like they're not going to the Liberals.
I'm less happy with Dan Andrews. I'm less happy with Dan Andrews than I have been in the past. Like I think there are problems with his government and they need to be addressed. But the alternative is far worse.
Yeah, the douche and the turd sandwich analogy. I'm less of a fan of the douche than I was initially. But I'm still really not on board with the turd sandwich.
Well, what we're describing is partisan politics, right? There is the Labor government would have to turn out It would actually have to be the right-wing fever dream of satanic child sacrifices. Like, that's what the Labor government would have to do at this stage for me not to vote for them and to vote for the Liberal government. That's like, I just don't see any scenario in which, like, even these pushes like, oh, we're going to put money into healthcare. But it's like, I know what you really think. I know, like, you and I, like, you might be trying to pander in order to get some votes for this election cycle. But I know you and I fundamentally do not agree on the same things. And so I can't in good conscience vote for a Liberal government in any manifestation. The other difficulty,
I keep finding the Dan Andrews government fundamentally disagree with me on many things, but
there is also the element, sort of a bit of a holdover from the federal election of the Teal independents. So I heard an interview with one of the organisers for some of the Teal campaigns in inner city Melbourne, which helped to swing the election to Labor federally recently. And they've also got similar campaigns starting up for state seats as well. So the Liberals are likely to face the same dynamic where they're trying to sort of drift leftwards to appeal to their, to not alienate some of the base, and trying to appear to be that more sort of centrist option. But then they're also getting challenged from the left, and they're also getting challenged from the right as well, in the sense that there's these more sort of extremist parties. So they're getting squeezed, similar to how they were getting squeezed in the federal election. Which, I mean,
the thing with the state election,
as a hopeless partisan, I love it.
with the state election, they're always a little bit less clear in terms of because they use different systems slightly in terms of how the houses work and where the seats are and how many candidates you have that stand up for particular.
But there is some overlap, right, with those federal seats that went Teal this time.
Yeah, there are. But like what I'm saying is, the choices you have as a voter are less clear at state election time, I find, than they are federally.
How so?
Just because, well, and I might be thinking because I traditionally am from a Tasmanian seat, which is really, they have a Hare Clark system, which is really fucking weird. Doesn't actually make sense. You have like you vote down. There's like 5 or 6 seats, but like you vote down the card, and it's like the top 3 get in or some shit. Like it's not like you have a separate candidate for separate seats. It's like, no, everyone's sitting for the same sort of area. Well, not everyone, but there's a bunch of people sitting for the same area, and you just have to vote. Like you vote your top 3 in or top 2 in or whatever it may be, and then the top 3 across the 5 or 6 seats, they all get in, and that's your parliament.
Oh, weird.
Which is really, but it's also the Hare Clark system, which is inherently different to Victoria and other states. So anyway, but yeah, what I'm saying is state elections are a little bit more confusing than the federal ones, because it's not like you have one candidate that will get in for one seat. It's not always like that.
Yeah, but I guess the point I'm making is the same sort of dynamics that just unfolded on a federal level will still be in play on a state level, and that doesn't bode well.
But what I'm saying is the outcome may be less clear cut than it would be, even though the swing is there. People might get their how to vote cards and just go, I don't know what I'm fucking doing, and then just vote. You know what I mean? Like, it may not be as black and white as what is federally.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with all of that said, like, yeah, the majority still intend to give Labor their first preference vote, and the coalition's even though Labor's first preference vote has dropped, the coalition's first preference vote has also dropped, and it was also lower to begin with. So, I see some of the same dynamics hopefully playing out in that respect. And as you say,
I should look up how to vote Victoria. I don't know how the Victorian electoral. I did one 4 years ago, and I can't remember. How the fucking.
That might be worth doing on the show. Actually, is sort of unpacking that a little bit more before the election, which is slated to be in November, if I recall correctly.
November 26th.
Yeah. Anyway, that little diversion into incredibly niche state politics aside, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that are ruining the world, that have, do, or ever will exist, at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and motherfucking TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me on Instagram at AC Doreen.
And you can follow us all down to Parliament House, where we'll be holding a Southern Cross flag up in protest of dictator Dan. I was just referencing that picture you sent to us the other day of that lone fascist standing in front of Old Parliament House
in Canberra. Yeah.
In Canberra.
Yeah. There were apparently a whole bunch
That's
of them
in
down the
Canberra.
road, but there was only one person actively protesting at that point.
Just why would we go and hold up a flag like that to protest Dan Andrews in Canberra? What are they going to do?
I know these fascists are very confused. The good thing about our fascists here in Australia is that they're exceedingly poorly organized. So thanks for listening, guys. I love your faces. We'll see you next week.